Hey guys, we're going to go over tips for crafting excellent slides and presentation strategies for senior project. So listen up and we should be good to go. This is all adapted from Kevin McLean's Get Over Stage Fright and Become a Pro at Public Speaking. I'm citing my sources up front since the vast majority of this comes from him, which is why you don't see in-text citations throughout because it's all done up front. For your presentations, you will definitely want to have those in-text citations whenever you're using somebody else's information. So make sure you include those in-text citations and your works cited page at the end. With that said, here we go. Posture and body language does not affect us because most likely you're just going to be recording your voice over your slides. So we'll get through this real quickly. Body language, you want to be confident, standing up straight, hands out of your pockets. You can use your hands to connect with the audience, making eye contact with everyone, and gesturing naturally so you don't feel robotic or awkward. You definitely don't want to distract by flailing around wildly. Just try to be as comfortable and communicate as naturally as possible. And this comes from the article Body Language, which we'll see cited at the end. It's here. You can refer back to this, but I don't want to belabor the point, so moving on. Clothing and accessories. Again, we're going to get through this real quickly because it probably doesn't apply to what you're doing for a senior project. Dress nicely, not distractingly. You actually want to be kind of boring so that we are focused on the content of your message rather than what it is you are wearing. Again, not really an issue for this project. Whoop. That's sort of what would be considered professional dress. Tucked in shirts for guys, collared shirts, jackets, skirts, dresses, conservative accessories there. Nothing terribly exciting. In terms of your voice, you definitely want to project to the back of the room. For this particular project, since you're doing it online, test your levels so that you can actually be heard and you're not, busting up your microphone. But in terms of a live presentation, definitely want to project so that everyone can hear you, even in the back of the room. Also, definitely want to speak clearly. You have the advantage of being able to do multiple takes with this one. So speak clearly. And if you can't understand what it is you've said, just do another take or edit. Do you know how to pronounce all the words? It completely breaks the flow and hurts your credibility if you're mispronouncing words. So if there's something you're not quite sure of, it's a technical term, so you can get Google to pronounce it for you so that you can have a sense of how you should be pronouncing it as you speak. And definitely slow down. Oftentimes we get nervous as we're presenting and we want to go really fast, but that's not going to be effective for the audience. So slow it down. Better to take a little bit more time to make sure we can actually hear and understand and process your words rather than speeding through it just for the sake of getting it done. And do not use video clips in a presentation. It just breaks the flow. If you have a scheduled break at the end of your section, then that's fine. You can do a video right before the break. But if you do a video clip, it becomes really challenging to get the audience's attention back on you once the clip ends. So if you're going to a natural break where you don't need to get their attention back right away, video clips will be fine. Otherwise, just don't use video clips in a presentation. Presenting, you definitely want to know your topic well. That sort of goes without saying. You want to know this thing inside and out so that you can speak intelligently about it. Definitely want to practice your speech several times. You also have the benefit of being able to do multiple takes for your presentation this time around. So definitely practice, rehearse, whether that's by yourself in front of the mirror, or you're just doing multiple takes, recording yourself on your phone, or you're doing it for family members or whatever. Definitely make sure you practice and rehearse. And do not just read from the slides. If that is all you're doing, what's the point? The audience can read the slides for themselves. What you want to do is have the slides as sort of, these are the basics, this is the stuff you must know, and then use your words to enhance that or clarify that or refine that. So if all you're doing is reading from the slides, there's not really much point in speaking because it's already there in print. And you want to use your slides to highlight key points for the audience. So if there's an important statistic you want us to know or an important quote you want us to know, you can throw that up there. If you just want to sort of bullet point your arguments so that we can follow it more clearly, that's great. But what you don't want to do is put every single word up there. You don't want big blocks of text because no one's going to read those. Your slides should really just work to highlight key points and to keep our attention. And you do want to be prepared for technical issues as you're recording this at home and then submitting it. You have an opportunity for multiple takes. Just plan for the time it takes to actually process these things and get the videos submitted. So just plan accordingly for any sort of technical issues. Sharing the presentation with another, not really necessary here because you don't need it in a particular moment, as long as you can get it submitted to Flipgrid on time. Again, USB drive does not apply to us, but just a good practice to have backups on your backups on your backups, so that if everything falls apart, you've still got it backed up somewhere and can move forward. Note cards, they can be useful. You can just read from your script if you want as you are presenting. I don't recommend reading the presentation as you go, simply because reading it can become a little stilted, a little what's the word I'm looking for? A little mechanical. If you want us to feel more organic and really connect with your audience more, you should try to, as much as possible, speak to the audience rather than reading to the audience from the cards. Note cards are great in terms of keeping yourself organized with key points, key ideas you don't want to forget, keeping you organized for the flow of information, but you don't want to write that entire speech on note cards. Partially because if you lose your way in the middle of the speech, if you've got the entire speech on there, it's going to be really difficult to find that exact spot you left off. If you've got just a couple key bullet points, it's going to be way easier to find where you left off and then get back into the flow of it. If you've got to scan your entire speech to figure out where you left off, that's going to allow a lot of awkward downtime. And in a video, you'll probably want to restart that. Or in a live presentation, it would just be that awkward silence as everyone stares at you. So note cards. Don't write the entire speech. Use it just for key points to keep you organized. And as I said, you don't want to read from them. Just glance at them and use them as necessary. In terms of formatting your slides, this stuff is actually going to be really important for what we're doing. So if you've been only half listening, now's the time to bring full attention. Your slides should be clear, not a lot of clutter. You should be able to communicate the information clearly. You want to use upper and lowercase letters, writing just like you normally would for a professional audience. You want to use contrasting and complementary colors. Color is your friend here. It can help highlight information that is super crucial. It just helps keep things organized, and it keeps the eye interested so that the audience is focused on what it is you're doing. And focal points direct your attention. So as you can see, this guy up here is looking up towards the text. That is done intentionally. As humans, we naturally have the inclination, if we see someone looking at something, we want to look at it too and figure out what it is they're seeing. So you can use that in your slides. Wherever you've got someone looking in a direction, it is our natural inclination to look at what they're looking at. And here I have used that to direct your attention to this text here. So if you're doing images with faces and eye lines, make sure the eye lines are directed towards your text. In terms of fonts, you want to manage the font size. The bigger the font, the more important the information, because it's going to pop off the page more. You want to test readability 7 feet from your screen. This is going to give you a sense of whether your text is too big or too small. If you can back up 7 feet from your screen and still read it, then you're good to go. If you find yourself squinting and leaning forward and trying to figure out what that word is, then you need to make that text a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. And if that means one slide suddenly becomes 2 slides, so be it. No big deal there. More important that the audience can read the information than that it fits on as few slides as possible. And the rule of 6 by 7 states that you want no more than 6 lines per slide and no more than 7 words per line. This helps keep your slides nice and clean and lean so that, again, we can focus on everything that's in there. You've all sat through presentations where a slide will come up and it's just one big block of text. Nobody reads that text. You see a big block of text and you just nope right out of there. So instead, what you want to do is follow that rule of 6x7, no more than 6 lines per slide, no more than 7 words per line. That way, we'll actually be more inclined to read your information and retain it and learn from you. Because if you put up a big block of text, a big paragraph, nobody is going to read it. So keep that in mind. Fonts. Serif fonts have feet. Sans serif fonts do not have feet. So this is the serif, the little foot we're talking about, hanging off the top here and coming up the bottom here. If you have serif fonts right here, those are easy to read on paper. The sans serif fonts are easier to read on a screen. So use those sans serif fonts in normal or bold for this project. Because again, it's easier to read on a screen. I don't know why. I don't know what the eye biology is behind it, but that's the deal. Sans serif fonts for a screen. Italics are difficult to read on screen, so don't italicize things. Instead, just use colors to make them pop. So where you might normally use italics, instead just use the color differences, and that will guide our attention and highlight the text you want us to focus on. Let's see, numbers versus bullet points. Use numbers for lists with a sequence. So when the order matters, that's when you want to use numbers. For example, how do you put an elephant into a fridge? First, open the door of the fridge. Second, put the elephant in. Third, close the door. That order is absolutely important. If you change the order, then it all falls apart. All right? You can't slam the elephant into the fridge door before you open it. So it's extremely important that you do those things in order 1, 2, 3. On the other hand, you're going to use bullet points to show a list without sequence, priority, or hierarchy. So if it doesn't matter, if the item becomes first, second, or third, if it doesn't matter, then just use bullet points. And that just keeps things flowing smoothly. All right, consistency. You choose one background or theme for your slideshow and just maintain it throughout. You don't want to have each different slide with a different background or theme. It just becomes hugely distracting, and then we're not focused on your points, your argument. Instead, we're just focused on the crazy stuff happening in the background of your slide. You want to choose one font and one dominant color, and again, maintain that throughout. That way, when you intentionally break that by using a highlighting color, it's easier to understand that that's purposefully what you are doing. So you want to maintain consistency throughout the slide in terms of your font size and the font. Designate sizes for hierarchy. Slide transitions should only appear or disappear. This is not the opportunity for a fancy star wipe. We want to go with professional here, so transitions appear, disappear only. In terms of the sizes for hierarchy, we're just talking about the font size. So as we said before, the bigger the font, the more important, so manage that accordingly. Watch capitalization and punctuation throughout. This is a formal presentation in an academic setting, so proofread. Have others help you out. Have family member or friend proofread as well. But you want to catch any of those typos before you are formally on display for your presentation. And the slides should reflect the tone of the presentation. So if you're talking about a super serious concept, we're talking about human rights abuses in the Holocaust, for example, to go along with night. That is a very serious and heavy topic. So you probably don't want, balloons in the background or, smiling clowns in a photo. So just make sure the slides reflect the tone of what it is you're talking about so that it all works together to prove your point and we aren't taken out of the flow by awkward images or backgrounds. Using your images. Not every slide needs an image. It is completely fine if all you've got is a couple pieces of information and then you move on. Images are nice, but they're not required for each and every slide. Images should directly relate to the slide content. All right, this is not the opportunity to just throw in a random meme because it's funny. Not the opportunity to throw in a random picture of yourself because you just had amazing lighting in that moment. Everything needs to be related to what it is you're trying to do. Formal academic presentation, so plan accordingly. Artistry does not substitute for content. So even if the slides look amazing, if you're not really saying anything, if there's no information there, it's not going to be successful. So make sure you've got the information, you've got the content, so that there's some meat to what you're presenting and it's not all flash and show. Avoid memes. I mean, I'm sure many of you could communicate entirely through memes for an entire day, and that would be fine. You wouldn't lose anything. However, there are some of us in the population who do not have that ability. And more importantly, it's really difficult to communicate nuanced information, the subtleties of ideas through meme. Meme, it's quick, it's easy, but it's difficult to communicate a lot of nuanced information, which is why they can be so problematic in political discourse. But I digress. Images should face the content. As we talked about before, the eye is going to follow the image, right? So you got the eyeball here. The eyeball is pointing at the text because it is our natural inclination to look where the image is telling us to look. So boom, you're looking at the content over here. So make sure your images are facing content and not facing off the slide. If I were to flip this eyeball and it's now looking off screen this way, that's where my eye's going to go, and then I am not focusing on that. Oop. Yeah, make sure images don't look off the slide. Just touched on that. Anyway, and you've got these slides as well. You can refer back to them without my voiceover. Citing sources, crucially important. As you speak, verbally refer to your sources. So you're going to have the citations written on the screen in your slides as well, but you also want to verbally cite your sources to establish the credibility, right? According to Dr. So-and-so from Stanford University, according to Dr. So-and-so from the Centers for Disease Control, whatever. You want to actually cite your sources so that we understand why we should trust these people and why their information is credible. So make sure you verbally cite your sources as well as having the written citation. You do want to include those internal citations on your slides, same way you did in your research paper, just author's last name in parentheses at the end of the information. Same rules apply in terms of if all the information on one slide comes from the same source, you can just cite it once at the bottom. If you got multiple sources, you need to include those citations at the end of that block of information. Same rules we followed with the research paper back in February and March. If you have any questions, just ask. And then you are going to have your works cited page at the end of the presentation. MLA formatted works cited page. That's going to be your last slide or chunk of slides. Please make sure it's in MLA format. It's alphabetized. And I do not need the annotations. You did the annotations to vet your sources. Now that that's done, I do not need to see those paragraphs. So all I'm looking for are those MLA formatted citations without any annotations. Yeah, your works cited page will also be included with the script that you'll be submitting to turn it in. And here's my works cited page for this presentation. And that is it. So hopefully that has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, just ask. Thank you much and happy presenting.